Hey y'all, I'm back. I can't believe I'm back. I decided I need to give it another update because this may even be the last time I can update anyone on anything. But the way the world's going, you never know. But I don't know how long this video is going to be. Gonna try to make it kind of short and sweet and simple. I'm not very good at that, but could be a 2 hour video. I hope not. So today, what I have for you is prophecy updates and Revelation chapter 13 study on the what I believe is the 70th week of Daniel and the 7 year tribulation. And I haven't really even made an outline of that study. I just opened the Bible up to the book of Revelation, so that may be interesting. Um, I'm happy to say I am still much better, but there is a lot of warfare. I have been through a lot of ridiculous, unwanted warfare, and I'm much better. And thank you, God. Thank God. And for the ones who are not used to my channel and haven't seen me before, if you find this video, there's other videos on my channel about the attacks that have happened to me. Just very briefly, I believe I was attacked. I believe it was a prophetic sign. Basically, I had been saying that a big change in the earth was coming around the year 2020 to 2021 that would have to do with the markets and the food and looked like the third seal of Revelation. So when the virus and everything started happening, I was reporting the different ways that it could be the third seal of Revelation opening. And through bizarre events, I was attacked by Satan or messenger of Satan, or however you want to say it, on September the 11th of 2020. And I didn't even notice that it was September the 11th. I just knew it was Friday afternoon is when it started. And then when I looked back at my calendar at the different things that happened with my warfare, I'm like, that's the day it started. And that's whenever I reacted in certain ways. And then I realized that's 9/11, but whatever. But a lot of my theories on where we're at in Revelation, have to do, you know, some of it has to do with 9/11 even before this. So anyway, that's just very briefly what's been happening with me, and I'm much better. And I've also noticed how I listen to a lot more YouTube as I'm feeling better and I'm doing better and I'm much stronger. And I've noticed how many people, even people who are not Christian, whenever they start talking about the scale and the level of events that are happening in the world right now, they are often reverting back to 9/11 or that date in 2001, the original first date. They'll go back to that because that's when the scale of what's happening in the world started. And even they're referring to that. Even they're noticing that's when these things started. Like Marfugal News does that a lot. He goes back and he's like, if you know that date in 2001, what happened at New York, a lot of people, I've noticed several people keep bringing that date up while they're describing the current world events because they're noticing the pattern too. And I'm not sure if they know where to put it. And if you're interested in my theories on that, there's a lot more videos on my channel about that. How that was the beginning of this end time escalation, even though it has been decades now. That's really the beginning of where we're at and like how and when it started and why. I also would report it's always in the fall. Since the fall of 2018, I noticed everything changed. The sunlight changed, the shade of the sunlight changed, the shadows were different and strange. You could suddenly see new small tiny shadows. And I've always attributed that to the powers of heaven shaking somehow, that prophecy of the Bible. And I will say that, well, first of all, sure enough, sometime in October, the shadows were worse. I could see the shadows were stupid and horrible again. It's just these tiny little shadows everywhere. And my vision is also getting just super sharp. And I'm having to fast so much in warfare and like play the Bible constantly and things like that. And I'm not, you know, being probably as sanctified as I should be even. but the warfare is so intense that my vision is just really somehow just getting sharp. And I'm seeing things like when I look in the sky, and I can tell I have more growth in whatever's happening. I can tell things like, the way I would describe it is, things are being adjusted in my heart and my spirit, that I think psychology calls it things like object constancy and things related to that. There's several related, very interesting theories with that, and maybe for a person it takes severe breaking and trauma and miracles by God, which I'm fasting and praying for daily because I want to be ready for heaven. I really want what God has for me and to be ready. But my vision is continually changing and I'm seeing better. And it's kind of like sometimes when I look in the clouds, I can hear the Lord telling me, heaven is my home soon in the future. And it's like I told one of my friends, it's kind of like a drawbridge of heaven is just being lowered down, which is extremely valuable and deep and touching whenever you're undergoing a lot of cruel injustice, because I'm doing a really good job of not paying attention to my attackers and people who are trying to blame me for what's happened to me. And, but I have to like kind of block that from my spirit, because I do have people that are cruel toward me at this time, and when that's happening, it can just be so deep and touching to feel the Lord telling you that, you're being worked on, and you're suffering with the Lord basically, and you're counted worthy for persecution and all those kind of things. But my vision is changing, and I also had an idea just from looking and studying artificial light, and just the shadows from artificial lighting, that it's making me curious if maybe it's not even just something has happened with our sun and our sunlight, or um, you know, the sunshine we would see from that. But maybe what I'm seeing is extra light that's somehow in the sky, whether it's extra systems that people are talking about, like a nemesis system with any of its moons or planets. And there's a lot of, theories on that. I think some people have false information on that, but some of it could be true. And then, or could someone have placed an artificial light in the sky even to manipulate how we see, what's going on in the heavens? Because it seems to me like there's either an extra or an artificial light happening, because there are shadows, like I said, since late 2018 that I haven't really seen before. I don't want to say they don't belong there, but I haven't seen them before, and I don't think they were ever made by our sun. That's just what it kind of looks like. But they're back. In the fall, they're always stronger. It's like they're back with a vengeance. Sure enough, sometime in October, I was like, boom! There are extreme accentuation of shadows that are not right. So that's happening again. I have, in case you guys see extra movement or hear noises while I'm talking, I have two little rescues that are sitting over there sleeping, and so far my talking has not disturbed them. They got quiet about an hour ago. But I don't have poltergeists. If you see things moving around me, I have two little kittens that love to fight constantly and tear everything all up. So they're growing really fast, and I'm just trying to give them a place out of the cold, and so they may help me in my video at some point in case you see that. And on my last video, I mentioned that me and a close friend were planning on doing a fun race, an obstacle course race, and we did do that race, and it was really blessed, and it was really good, and I was attacked for it because it was so good. Spiritually attacked, and it's not even making it up. So sometimes you have things happen to you suddenly that are kind of abnormal. No. I was attacked for doing this, but it was worth it, and the attack didn't last long once I recognized it and prayed against it. My spiritual attack, it's like the physical attack on my body, is way less, and I still kind of hold to the theory of, will something supernaturally take it away, or will it be very obviously gone whenever, like if this is the timing. I've talked about the theory before that Just like John the Baptist's father could not talk until John the Baptist was born. Is this another? This is like a timing and a sign of 9/11 of 2020. The devil hits me and is attacking me, and then whenever a major worldwide sign with the markets happens, maybe I'll be free. I don't know. It may not even happen like that. I may fight this. I don't know. I am welcoming everything to leave me alone ASAP. That's my theory on it. But in case, you know, what I kind of wonder is, I see things escalate in the world, I'm getting better. So I do wonder about timing, in case. And I also wanted to bring up, as far as my prophecy updates, that I am going to talk about a few people that are on YouTube that you guys can find and watch. The first person is Paul Begley YouTube channel, and I would refer you to his channel again. And some of what I'm going to talk about has to do with, you guys may know Mike from Around the World, that Paul often has on Thursday nights, every Thursday night. And if you guys want to go check out that channel, they're having a webinar soon that I need to pay attention to. I've been needing to check out all of their webinars. I've just been like attacked by hell and lots of things where I don't always have time to really study them like I should. But the next one I probably need to go ahead and watch. It's going to be December the 2nd. It's called Deep Impact. And I suggest that you guys go, and I think you get information on buying that at their website, paulbegleyprophecy.com. But just let me know in the comments if you guys want me to kind of let you know my ideas of their webinar, because they're going to have really excellent speakers with new information from what I'm hearing. And for some reason, there's certain webinars they do that me and my sister are like, we've got to watch that one. We've got to pay attention to this one, because I think to me the ones that really stand out, one of them that had to do with the armies of the Antichrist. I still have not watched that, and I need to watch it too, and I may give you guys a review if I do. But yeah, just let me know if you want me to do that with Deep Impact, because the ones I think that I start paying attention to have to do with the heavens. Because since the Revelation 12 sign, I believe that was 2017. Was that September 23rd, 2017? Since the Revelation 12 sign, I believe the Lord has been letting the watching people know, look to the heavens for the key and the lock and the puzzle to what's happening next. Because once I started looking up, and other people online have also, and some people follow the Shemitah cycles also. But looking up after that is kind of like where everything made sense, and it's showing us exactly where we are. So when they're talking about space, Planet X, deep impacts, and asteroids, that may have information that's important to share. That's my theory on it. Lately, what I've been impressed with on their Thursday night shows, Mike from Around the World will talk about so many imminent disaster everywhere. This is the part where Paul Begley would fall backward onto the floor out of his chair. But anyway, so much disaster everywhere. And I always try to stop and pray for the people that are having to be forced into war, and people are being dismembered. Like, I've been assaulted by hell at a point that I've called worse than death. And so I always try to stop and pray for people who are being left orphaned in the wars. And it is a very serious time, and there's a lot of need for prayer. And like they're pointing out, a lot of people are just suddenly dying of everything and horrible cancers. So I feel in all of my warfare, one of the things I've done is made a serious prayer list for other people, because that is definitely a huge ministry and very much needed, and you'll be very blessed in it. And I'm praying for souls and souls to be just saved out of cults and off of battlefields and off of deathbeds. And I know people are suffering. It's a horrible, hard time. And only God's like miracle answers are going to see us through. And it's already like really hard in a lot of places, and harder than we realize. That normalcy bias is going to be there till the very end. And that's why people are going to be cursing God instead of waking up toward the end and not repenting of everything. And even the people, guys, when you get persecuted like I've been, as you're being persecuted, you see it in the Bible, they're not repenting. They're not repenting of their murders because their murders appear to be working, like what's happened to me for 2 years now. It works for them. They think it's working. They're convinced by their own wickedness. But enough on that. What Mike is talking about is so much disaster physically of the earth and the heavens, disaster and potential disaster, and to where the people analyzing these things apparently are like, something big is about to happen imminently, constantly, something big more, and maybe it will, but the impression that I'm left with is God's hand is holding everything. It's God's hand. God's hand is holding everything from happening constantly. And that's the only reason things haven't happened more and constantly and more places and everywhere. And things are happening. There is a whole lot happening, like with the weather and the earth changes. There's a lot, and it's mostly signs for people to wake up. And there's a lot of deaths, But God's hand is the thing that's making it to where it's not so much crazy worse everywhere. Like what is that movie, the 2012 movie I always reference of, that's not what the apocalypse is going to look like until you see Jesus in the heavens. We're probably not going to see major parts of the apocalypse like we would imagine it. But there's that, and then some of my takes on what they discuss on their Thursday night show. They talked about how a magnetar kind of explosion makes the leaders of the earth very fearful and the people in the know very, very fearful because of how much destruction it can do instantly. And that's once more, where are we in the book of Revelation? It's going to happen exactly like it says, but the world leaders can't really go by that. They have to be very secular and in their planning and how they handle the public and all of this. But they talked about magnetars taking off part of the Earth atmosphere and immediately burning that part of the Earth, just scorching it up, only partially. And that's mathematically and according to physics understandable. That made me instantly think about Babylon burning, because I've always thought something will affect a certain part of the Earth that would be Babylon at that time and no other part, to where that part would be burning. And that made me wonder, okay, is that a part that happens to be above a big caldera and that's finally the one that explodes? And maybe that's true, or maybe it's just like Sodom and Gomorrah of angels raining it down, or all the above. But this could also be part of what happens with Babylon and why people are watching from a distance because they know they can't even go there, is a magnetar comes and takes away that part, and that part of the earth burns like that at that level. That's a possibility I saw. Some of the things I'm going to mention are just kind of like really fast bullet points of, this is what this reminded me of, that's what that reminded me of, but it's kind of just like a logical video of updates. The other thing they talked about on there is something like a magnetar coming in, or some kind of a either that or something like it coming through our area of space and removing the top layers of the moon so that the moon is now no longer the same color and it's, quote, uncovered, and it could turn a different color like black. And that reminds me the time in the Bible at the end where it talks about the moon being both blood red and black. And I've always thought maybe it could be both. Maybe it could be the same event making it appear both from different parts of the world or at different times. First it may appear black, then it may appear red, or first red, then black. But regardless of that, this could be what the part, like at the very end when Jesus appears, from the sixth seal onward, may be the time that the moon is uncovered. Maybe. And that could be what they're seeing already, if that's going to be happening with the moon. In other words, and it could be part of the fearful sights and great signs of the end that happen even before the sixth seal. Could be, where the moon changes color. It could be that too. Because what we're going to see is we're going to see certain signs in the heavens over time. While the church is still here, I believe, before even the sixth seal, that are going to be classified as fearful sights and great signs. And that could be your alien deception. That could be changes in the sun and the moon like this. But we will see some probably over time or off and on. But then there will be some major signs that we don't see until the part of the Bible that talks about the sea and the waves roaring, and that's going to be at the sixth seal, where I believe we're raptured, and then afterward into the judgments of the trumpets and vials. And once more, that this is just my best theory on everything that keeps getting confirmed by every new information that I see. I'm not saying to take it verbatim, this, and I'm not being adamant that is how it's going to be. But that's what it looks like the most to me, is that we're here during a fifth seal tribulation, and then at the sixth seal, the church is raptured, and that you can match that in with the cataclysm that comes. We're caught up in the into the heavens with the Lord, to be with the Lord forever in the air, and the angels will carry the believers from the four winds of heaven and earth. That would be the sixth seal, and that's matched in the Gospels as, quote, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Immediately after the tribulations, when the angel is collecting believers, and that's once more in the Gospels, that's where you see the heavens shifting. And I've mentioned that on other videos, but that's just the best way I see it. And I also see a time frame for, I could be just totally missing something, but I do believe that the trumpets and the vials are completely separate from the seals, and that we are already in the seals. The trumpets and the vials come later, and if they're like birth pangs, they could be like these things happen faster and faster. And there is a time between the time that Jesus appears in the cloud with great glory and he lands back down on Mount Olives. He comes back in the Battle of Armageddon to stay and build his kingdom for the millennial reign. There is a time space for that in Daniel with the, this is the transgression of desolation in the book of Daniel. That's a time frame that's described as starting at the abomination of desolation and going past 3.5 years to the end of the tribulation. And it goes past. And this is a time where things are different on earth regarding Israel, Jerusalem, the temple. But it goes a while past the last 3.5 years times and half time, 1290 days. It goes past that point, I want to say another 1,000 or so days. So what happens during those days? And it's not provable. It's not completely proven. I haven't found Bible verses to prove it. But that does leave a time frame open for the trumpets and the vials to still be poured out. And there's a lot going on with that. That's where it becomes supernatural. And I've talked about that on my last video, where a lot of things become a lot more supernatural than we've seen before, like in the seals, like where we're living now. And I don't get into all the theories. I don't buy into the theories of things like hyper-dispensationalism with that, or building dispensations to prove a point about the rapture, which a lot of people do, or this time is only for Israel and this time is only for the Gentiles. Even though there's something really special about the 144,000 being sealed, and there being a special time that where Israel is really emphasized more, and that does look like that happens after the rapture, and it looks like it happens after the sixth seal. And that may also be where you see like the two prophets that will actually die on the streets of Jerusalem, is what it looks like, and resurrect there in front of the world. And that will be a special time, and it may have to do with Israel, but I don't hyper-focus on that and say it's like a whole different dispensation or such a super separation where, so I can excuse away that there's a pre-trib rapture. But I don't really need to get into that because that's just too much details at one time. But I think that is an error to sit there, even though I would say that there is a special time there between the time that Jesus appears in the clouds and everyone mourns, and everyone's probably lied about that by the Antichrist beast system still, even though now the wrath starts getting poured out on that system, and they're probably not as effective. And then the time later, which is the marriage supper, later is when the Lord comes back with all of the armies of people on the white horses behind him, and the Battle of Armageddon. And that's the marriage supper of the Lamb, I do believe. Not some supper we have at a table in heaven. That's a marriage supper. That's tremendous justice. We're going to see tons of injustice before then. Try to pray to not be disheartened or distracted or falling away from the Lord because of the trauma and the injustice, because that marriage supper is when a lot of changes will happen. A lot of when we're raptured, we'll be changed, in the twinkling of an eye. But I think that supper is probably going to be the marriage supper of. It's going to conclude a lot of things like our justice, and it's just going to be the triumph of triumphs, and he's going to set up rule. But I was just explaining the timing in that again, where even the people who adamantly believe in the pre-tribulation rapture, I think they're not realizing that there is a difference between tribulation of Antichrist and wrath poured out by God, that there is a such thing as a possible difference. They're not seeing that. They're just seeing fear. We won't be here for any of Revelation. So they're going to be kind of blindsided and have a hard time explaining we might be in the seals, even when most people are saying, what on earth, we must be in the seals. But people aren't seeing that. They're not seeing that there could be two completely different times. They're not seeing that they do have it right in their mind that God will take his people out before certain things. I think they have that part right. People that are adamantly pre-trib rapture are seeing that the church will be gone at a certain time, but they're not taking into account suffering, being counted worthy for suffering for the Lord, and that the Lord and his prophecies are so holy, there's no telling what could happen. I mean, it's not all about us, They're not taking into account certain things, mostly because of teaching can be so strong, and it is fulfilled prophecy. It's probably fulfilling prophecy in a lot of ways that people don't see it, kind of like they didn't see that Jesus, what was going to happen to him when he was on earth. And so, but people that believe in the pre-tribulation rapture, a lot of them see two separate times, one being Jesus appearing in the clouds with great glory, and a second one being he comes down to Mount Olive during the Battle of Armageddon, or immediately after. And I believe they have that part right, because the only thing is their timing. They're placing that around a 7-year tribulation. They're not placing that immediately after the tribulation and then after the wrath. That Jesus appears in the clouds then and comes back after the wrath is poured out. So that's kind of the timing issue. And some people that don't see a difference between the tribulation and the wrath of God poured out, they don't see a difference between that, but they see that there's something like what I'm describing. They come up with mid-trib theories. Or there's a few that are saying the wrath is different and it happens a little later, and there is a time frame for that. The only other thing that Mike and Paul talk about that I had a take on is they're talking about Apophis. I guess they're talking about their Deep Impact webinar coming up. They talk about this asteroid Apophis, or whatever you want to call this thing, asteroid that's coming through in 2029, and Tom Horn is calling that possibly Wormwood, I believe, or he is calling it Wormwood. I haven't read his book on it, the Wormwood Prophecies. And so what I started seeing for a possible agenda to watch out for with Apophis, 2029, because that date, and we're having to believe the world systems to tell us this, right? So hopefully we can trust that even. But if we trust that and we say that there is this incoming asteroid or whatever, 2029, that's going to come super close to the Earth, and then if it doesn't hit us then, it will definitely hit us. I think it's 2036. What I see as a big possibility there is a chance for the world systems to be a hero. And that is helpful to me, because if you're following the Shemitahs, a lot of people are saying something urgent would happen the fall of this year in 2022, and then 7 years later would be 2029. So what if that's the tribulation? From this year to 2029 is the tribulation, and then Apophis would be the end of the world, or however you want to say that. That would be a 7-year time frame, but a lot of people are saying 2023, and it could still be 20 more years, or 30 or 40. But where we could place Apophis is, it could be a legit deal. Let's just say it is, and it really is a rock that's coming super close. Whenever Trump was told to set up Space Force, that was not his idea. That's what the world systems are doing. And so I believe the other governments of the world have similar projects. And this recent project that they did, I believe what they were doing is they found some kind of a rock or a debris or an asteroid type body going around another planet, and they sent some kind of weapon against it to change its trajectory just to prove that they could, and I think it was successful, and they're supposedly not going to know till a certain number of years later, even from now. I think what happened there is they're predictively programming us that they now have tech to be God and to control prophecy and to control space. So if we're told, here it comes, it's a world killer, it's an apocalypse thing that's coming, but now the world systems are here and they're our hero, and they can change Apophis and set it right off course. So that could be a potential panic point that the hero Antichrist beast systems cure and heal and correct and fix. That like, what's a bigger hero than that? That makes a lot of people put their trust in the world systems, or at least it can be put all over the beast megaphone of the MSM of, look who has the real power, look who controls the powers of heaven. We control even the powers of heaven now. We don't have to go through the apocalypses because we can control that. We have the technology. Trust the science, right? So that's another thing that I'm seeing with that sets us up with a whole different time clock. For me, it's a different time clock. We're going to have to go by Shemitahs now, or we're going to have to go by seals and horsemen that seem to be opening now. We can't go by 2029, 2036, or 2030 agendas maybe. We could go by something like that. But that's what I have a big suspicion now with Apophis, is everyone's going to hype it up. We have all of our movies telling us what a disaster that is. The Don't Look Up. And then here comes our big hero savior that is our new God, science that fixes it. So now that's the new savior. And what would we do without it? Apophis would have hit us. I think they're having to walk a real tight line between scaring us that it's coming, but playing it down like it's probably not going to hit, but it definitely will even later. That way they can come in and be the big hero. So I think that I explained that enough where watch out for that one. That is a chance for prophecy to be extenuated out, possibly 20 more years from now, on and on into the pale horse. And or it's a chance for that to be a big nothing burger after all, because now we have a new hero, a new god is the beast system. That could be their new way of becoming the hero. And for all of the prophecy leaders to be shown up as fear-mongering, or their prophecies of the world can be usurped by our new hero and savior of science. So the other person that I would suggest is Steve Bendanoon, which he's also going to be on their webinar of Deep Impact. And Steve, he has two channels. One of them is like his name, I think it's Steve Bendanoon, something like that. And the other one is Israeli News Live. That's the one that I watch a lot. And he'll mention things even in his videos that are not related. He also has another platform or two or three. So if you really get into him, you'll find the platforms. I think you have to pay for the Patreon, and I haven't done that yet. But he mentioned something interesting on, I believe it was Israeli News Live, and he may talk about this on Deep Impact webinar, where their latest information on Planet X, and now it seems like the powers that be that are following and watching this are just taking it for granted and just speaking about it as though it were nonchalant. Everybody knows it. Is that whatever they're watching that you could call a Planet X or a dwarf star or however you want to name it, is going in and out of dimensions much like the UFOs do. In and out of the ether and dimensions. And this may be why the governments seem to really be asking people like Steve to decipher the old text to figure out what beings will happen there. That we'll see when this happens. Some of that may be that when that time frame hits us, we're going to have what I discussed in my last video. We may have the supernatural opened up so much that beings are coming from everywhere or anywhere, not just from a planet. But they do have reason to believe that there's other beings on this planet or place, that it may open up a portal way to other areas, like gates and keys unlocking when stars align. I mean, this is classic astrology probably. I'm not into astrology, I don't know, but some of it sounds like it. And so they probably have good reason, and there's probably historical context of other beings appearing. Well, especially if they're coming from another dimension, because that's wormhole type talk. That would explain things like why it's hard to calculate it, why it's hard to find it, why it's hard to see it. People have come up with theories that they're putting lenses in space to make it where we can't see it, but maybe it's just in another dimension and it hides, and that may be why it seems like it's the brown dwarf and you have to have special lenses to see it. But part of it may be that it comes in and out of another dimension, just like the UFO travel, or goes through wormholes and does practically the same thing. That may be why it's hard to calculate when it could come, and that even an old astronomer, I forgot his name, from Colombia, I think, he spoke Spanish on any of the videos I saw of him, said that it moved at 3 different speeds, and that could be why. Because they were trying to figure out why it was hard to calculate. It could be because it has different ways of traveling. And that's just kind of like brand new, outside of the box information to keep in mind when studying that, because on my little documentary I did on it, I never covered things like that. And there's probably other things about it we don't know either. The other information I have about prophecy is one of the theories that I'm wondering about the seals, but just from things myself and other close spiritual friends that I know, Christian friends, have experienced, is with the seals opening. And I know you've had Russ Dizdar and different teachers have been teaching for a while, especially with the evil and the obvious sacrifices that have happened, evil sacrifices, that they call it the veil thinning, and that more evil will be allowed onto earth. But I wonder how much that has to do with seals opening. Like every time a seal opens, is more evil allowed? Is that removing like a spiritual layer off the earth to unseal something even? And I wondered that because of the way I was just hit on 9/11 of 2020. Like, is that a sign of one of the things that myself and other Christians, spiritual Christians, like seem to be faithful Christians are noticing, for example, is now, I mean, I believe the red horse was peace taken from the earth, and that was hard. But now what you have is people can talk against us and we're being attacked in our body. It's just bizarre. And that's happened since my original attack, is if people were turn on me and talk against me, I'll be attacked in my body more. And that's less and less. It's going away. But, and I've read books of Christians saying that that's happened to them with church gossip, or even in like areas of the world that are a lot more dark spiritually. But I'm just kind of wondering, is this seals related? And it's just something I'm going to put out there, because I get a lot of help from people that just put stuff out there, like Dan Duval, that they're wondering about. And I'm like, yeah, that happened to me. You never know how much it's happening and if it will help the church. Is something unsealing in the spirit world? That's one of the questions I've kind of had. And to the point, like in my last video, if you notice, after the 6th seal in Lindley Oz, she also speculated and studied and was curious about, in that time of the cataclysms happening, and she matched the 6th seal with the Gospels. Will there be a supernatural unveiling to the point of you start seeing your supernatural phenomenon into the trumpets, which happen immediately next? That's where your locusts appear out of a pit, and that's whenever you have your 200 million man supernatural army. A lot of people have speculated that comes from China because they had so many people, and even people that I knew from when I was a child speculated that. But These things look very supernatural, like they're coming from another dimension, and they're coming up onto the earth, and because something has been unlayered. So by the time you get to the seventh seal, are we all the way open somehow? Supernatural. Just a thought, something I might not even need to say out loud, especially not on the internet. So you have that, and I wonder about increased attack with each seal, because now that I look back on it, my theory that this past decade, before 2020 was the red horse, I went through a lot of misery in that a lot of people did. I went through a lot of spiritual and mental misery and warfare that was, for lack of better words, peace was taken. And I know a lot of people did, and I've mapped it, and I have defined the peace that was taken and things that I never saw. I was introduced to what I call narcissistic abuse, and that's why I made such a big deal of it. And I speculate on my old channel, was that part of prophecy of this peace taken, that it has exploded? You had your social media explosion since after 2009 that coincided with that, and that could have facilitated a lot of the peace taken. But you also had the market collapses to the effect of people losing a lot of stability. Peace was taken. Of course, like I say, I felt something like around 2011. I was feeling something removed from wherever I was on earth. It was in the heavens. I could feel something just literally removed. And I was texting people about it. So I wonder if I feel these things and I'm being shown things about them more, like literal peace taken. And like I say, social media could facilitate or make it more obvious than ever. You have a lot more people of certain immature age ranges who have been specifically trained and raised up to be ungodly. So, I mean, you have a lot of things coinciding at one time with peace taken. Could that have been a seal or an unveiling where peace, that now you have people living under a whole different release in the spirit? Because a lot of things that I've fought, I called gaslighting and narcissistic abuse, and it was very difficult. But I always knew it was something else too. And it could have been me understanding the spiritual fallout of that, of peace taken. And another thing that I've heard people comment about is there was a lot of people attacking each other on the internet at that time. Some of it, I believe, was abuse, and then some of it was legitimate reactive abuse, where, and we are in wicked times, and there are wicked people that do need to be called out. There's a lot of sheep that deserve to know that this is a wolf and that's a wolf, and this is false doctrine, and this is error, grave error, like damnable heresies more than ever. So there's all of that. And so that's why I don't ever say a negative word. Don't ever say a negative thing, because the Bible is full of warning, 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 and it's negative if you look at it that way. But there is the unnecessary attacking. There's the legitimate marking, dividing, and warning. And like a lot of times people take the Bible verse that says, mark the ones who are causing division and heresy, and say anybody that argues anything, get away from them because they're wrong. That's not what it says. It says mark the people that are against the gospel of Jesus Christ. Because Jesus does bring a sword, and there will be a lot of times of not agreeing and not being in accord and being very ugly in our words and saying exactly what it is. But that's the difference. People that are just saying that's wrong and this is wrong, that doesn't make them divide from them because they're causing divisions or mark them. No, that's reserved for people who are causing divisions against the true gospel of Jesus Christ. Very different. But there was a lot of, I'm going to, tear down this person, tear down that person, or attack this ministry and attack that one and divide and come against people and just be ugly as you can be. And that was just silly. And that could have been part of the peace taken. And it's unnecessary. It's counterproductive. It causes a lot of harm, and it's just a distraction from what could be very good things too. But that's kind of my takes on what that could have been the part of the peace taken during the Red Horse, which I believe was around 2009 to 2011 when that was released. I do believe. according to, there is a lot of things just pointing at that wouldn't surprise me. And speaking of tearing people down, I don't want to talk a lot about it, but I have to say something about this. Perry Stone, you guys may be aware of what's happened with him since 2020, and it's tragic, and I feel for him. I feel for him. I have compassion. I hope he is repentant. I hope he's okay. I think he's so logical and teacher mode and mental, and all of us that are like that need to be super careful. The carnal mind can be very strong. Not to mention how we're just taught wrong these days. But the teacher gifts and the logic and the math, and someone said he's autistic, so that could make it harder for him. I really hope the best for him, and I hope he's fine and has gotten good counseling and rebuilding and can really help people. The only reason I'm even bringing this up, because I still will listen to him, and some people believe that he's into some super different false error, and if you see that, please add it in the comments to help people, because, I mean, we shouldn't be respecter of persons. We should be watching out for error, doctrinal, scriptural error. Apparently, he did admit to falling, and he was even, he was really hurt, and I feel for people in that situation too. And I say that yes, we should help people to be restored in any capacity that God will restore them, but there's lessons. Usually when this happens, there's a lesson, and it's important and to be very careful about. In other words, I think I have tons of compassion, and it's painful to me to watch what's happened to him. It causes me pain for him. So I hope he's okay at the end of the day, but here is the warning. The other day I saw him making a video, for example. He's made several videos like this, and there will probably be more and more videos as time goes on. What was the most danger about his ministry is that he had a powerful big following, which makes him look super legitimate. A lot of people can't get past that. They don't see past that. If people have a name, a profile, they look a certain glossy, beautiful way. This is why a lot of people believe the news media, for example. If they have a certain appearance and following and all of that, then they must be pretty legitimate, right? And so what I saw was a minister who has had his name out there for decades in a very wonderful setup, in a very wonderful setting, and he had all the lights, and it was just glamorous and appealing to the eye, and people were listening to him and applauding him, and he had a powerful platform, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And he was teaching something that is very scary, that I don't think the Lord wants the majority of people just blindly walking off a cliff with. And there may be other areas he does this, but this is the only area that I'm going to point out that I believe in that is very hard for me to watch. He has said we're going to be raptured before anything, right? Since forever. He's one of the big voices that have always been out there saying, don't worry, America is going to be raptured before anything difficult comes to America. Something like that. That's the vibe that he gives to everyone. Don't worry, America, you're all going to be raptured, and we're going to be just fine until we're raptured. And so he basically and he has tons of videos like that, and he's probably going to have lots and lots more. Until what point are these specific kinds of teachers going to wake up and say, I've got to start telling people something different? And it might be the point that they're just not capable of being influential anymore because nobody has money or something. So he's making this video about can the seals of Revelation possibly be opening, which there's several people making those videos now, interestingly enough. Like, how obvious is it getting, right? Will it be obvious when the whole world is in super famine and it's taking over our currencies? Well, something like that, maybe. So anyway, you have this very influential, powerful voice that people have trusted for such a long time, is the point I'm trying to get across here. People trust him since forever. So as soon as he says we're raptured, everybody's raptured. and that's all they can think of. Just saying. And so he goes right into teaching. Of course, we're not in the seals. Don't worry, we're not in the seals. Of course not, because that is the tribulation, and we're obviously not even there yet because we're not raptured. And I hope you guys can see the false logic. And I had to wonder immediately. The mixture of the complete stereotypical false logic, complete textbook false logic of the entire problem of how the majority of the American Christians are thinking, or a lot of them. He's the textbook of that. He is the textbook of the false logic that we don't need to be thinking right now. And it's very sad. I don't blame him. I don't hate him, but it's a problem. So he's the textbook of false in that area. And he has a powerful, believable platform. He's trusted. Do you see the problem? Very false for our time, very trusted for a long time. Problem. It doesn't work. That's why I'm wondering, was this allowed? And the pride, too. Not just I'm saying he's prideful, but the way systems will build up a minister and a pastor where they get really full of themselves and think they know exactly what they're talking about, a lot of them, and the systems around them feed them to the point where they can't afford to say something different. They literally cannot afford to say, if God showed them in a dream at night, they couldn't afford to come out and say, I see something different. They can't afford to. But I think Perry Stone isn't lying on purpose. But what I'm saying is, it seems to me like God has allowed him to be discredited at this time. Maybe people like him, so watch for that. Are people with that combination right now being discredited so that people will have a chance? Oh, well, this person who's screaming rapture at any minute when, wait a minute, what's all this horsemen galloping in the streets? Wait a minute. Are the voices that are saying, no, that's not what you're seeing, and they've built this trustworthy platform for so long, are they being silenced? Is the hand of God silencing them? And hopefully at the same time giving them a chance to be saved. I'm not against them. I'm just saying this is a powerful lie. This is powerful error. And is God not allowing it right now? Is God allowing anyone and back to my pride theory, the pride there would be, he always had a headstrong, something we all need to watch out for, even before 2020 and I knew of the rumors. He always had a headstrong, this is just how it is, it's no other way, and I know preachers like this too in person. It is just how it is, there's no other way, shut your mouth, get out of here, we're not going to have a discussion, the end. Why? Comfort. Why? Physical pleasure and ease and comfort and mental gratification. Not holy prophecies of God, where people have known to suffer through time and still do today in other countries. Nothing logical, just prideful, headstrong, will not hear anything else, close every other opinion down. That's what I mean by the pride. So if Perry Stone has sat there and shut down the mouths of people who are telling the truth, maybe this is God shutting his mouth. I hope I said that with enough compassion, not against the man, but I saw that. So anyway, that's my update so far on what I'm seeing in the world right now with prophecy. I told my sister and my brother very jokingly that I do not ever need to read the book of Daniel or any other prophets again, because I will start seeing more and more things and I will be attacked by Satan even harder, because I probably won't stop talking about them. And so I accidentally read the end of the book of Daniel and saw some cool things the other night at a church Bible study. We were reading somewhere in the Gospels, and I said, I need to read in Hosea. So I turned my book over to Hosea while they were reading, and I realized, oh, I'm at the end of Daniel, so I started reading that last chapter, and something made sense in there. And it's not an earth-shattering, and it's not a prophecy-clarifying thing, but I feel like I get little pieces of information at a time, and then it, helps me understand bigger pictures. But first I will go to Revelation chapter 13, was where I was going to study this time. I just wanted to explain where it looks to me, and this is a hopeful thing because I have loved ones who are like invalid. that I would probably be taking care of during a tribulation, or trying to. And it probably will not go well. So I'm not sitting here being like I'm going to be the apocalypse prepper and it's going to be wonderful and I'm going to be just fine in my camp in the woods. And, you know, no, I have loved ones who are not going to make it. And then I'm going to be like one of the in-between people. That there's going to be a lot of people in that shape where if you don't take the mark of the beast and you are still here, you're just not going to make it. And then if you're not allowing people to take the mark of the beast, you're a terrible, negligent criminal, you know. And I don't mind saying things because that's a struggle a lot of people are going to have. But I say that saying, it looks to me like the 70th week of Daniel, which is 7 years, which is alluded to in the different times in the Bible where the Lord talks about. Bible will allude to these times that are about 3.5 years. And then it talks about abomination of desolation. Looks like it divides the 7-year period. And so my hope is that some parts of the world will be very functional during the first half of the tribulation. And the second half is the and I've been thinking this for a while now. The second half is going to be the really hard part of being chased by drones, being chased into the woods, surrendering to a camp and saying goodbye, if that makes sense. The hardest of the hard times where you cannot buy or sell worldwide without a mark. Instead of it being 7 years, it's 3.5. That would help a lot of people mentally because they're like, you know, we do not have to even think about having to survive something like that even that long, you know, if that makes sense. So this is where I kind of got that idea, was from the 13th chapter of Revelation that's describing the tribulation period, I believe. And there is going to be persecution at first. Now, especially if things happen suddenly, whether that's 5 years from now or 15 years from now. If things happen suddenly, where either, like Marzulli says, the UFOs appear and tell us they're our new God because we almost annihilated each other, or a market collapse pushes everybody into a worldwide system overnight, you know, electrical system collapses, food collapses, a war to a certain degree. If something pushes us into that worldwide system very quickly, even if we have the infrastructure in place behind scenes that we are suddenly introduced to, that starts rolling out, like some people now I think are seeing what looks like the Starlink, but it's not really Starlink. So I have a theory that we already have different satellite systems going on that no one knows about and people are seeing them. I mean, we could totally have the infrastructure there to turn this on overnight. So the theory would be, if you go from worldwide catastrophe into a man making a 7-year peace treaty, could there be 3 years of adjusting into that system and trying to make the world comply, and then you've got a bunch of people that are religious that will not comply? It even looks like at some point, possibly those kinds of people rebel enough to cause a wound to a head of maybe one of the world leaders, that the beast has to show up and heal miraculously to get the agenda back and the narrative back and the trust back and the worship back, and that could be done through cloning or sorcery or cameras, you know, fake stuff, deep fake or whatever they call it. So in other words, I'm not trusting anything they put out there, you know, lies. It's going to be about deception. It looks like there's going to be a lot of struggling against the system when it first tries to set up, is what I'm saying. That could be during the first 3.5 years, and it could reach such a peak of desperation against the system being set up that maybe that's why at the halfway point or somewhere in there, this tech, or it could just be the release of tech. They finally upgrade their tech to a certain degree. But it looks like at that halfway point, something different is rolled out. Phase 2 comes out, and Phase 2 is hardcore and says we're going to shut down all dissidents, and it could also people could also be deceived into it by the global weather changes and the starvation levels or the rationing levels, to a point where people are, you know, get to another frustration point of, yes, we do need to get rid of the people who are not complying. It is mathematical. Apophis has been destroyed. our new leaders are here to save us from everything. They are really God. God was just going to let us be lost to Apophis or whatever, or the Old Testament ideas, or yeah, this is the new trustworthy system that's going to save us from all of the global warming. So, we need to people. The new system rolls out, and that is the mathematical mark. That's what it looks like. So I'm going to read this and kind of explain why that's what I see in here. In chapter 13 of Revelation, it says, "And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea." And a lot of people call the sea as like the masses of people. I'm not sure if that's what it means, but that's what a lot of people say. But the beast had 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And by the way, those 10 horns, the 10 crowns, it looks like it coincides with these 10 rulers that are given for a short season under this beast system of the world. They're given power for a short season. And a lot of people have theorized that could be 10 regions of the earth that are given a temporary ruler, just like appointed, so that they can rule over that area on behalf of the beast system. And I've theorized the different people that it could be for the North America. Just look back over the past 15 years at our evil, the most evil people that have ruled, that have been our leader. So possibly people like that would be willing to take up leadership over us. Or don't be surprised if it's someone like DJT. Don't be surprised, because we don't know these people and what their true agendas are, and where they really come from and what they're really doing, or what they could be fooled into. Like, God may give us a reprieve by letting our temporary ruler be somebody like Trump rather than somebody like HRC. Just saying. In other words, don't let anything or anyone tell you that it's okay to take a mark. Anyone. "And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion, and the dragon gave him power, and his seat, and great authority." And there is a lot of speculation on what countries that is. "And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him?" Who is able to make war makes it seem like he's doing amazing things, like maybe controlling the weather, curing global warming, curing the catastrophes of Earth, healing this deadly wound. Notice this deadly wound was one of these heads, and that's one of the 7 heads, and that could also be one of the world rulers at the time. And it says, "And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months." And that breaks down into 3.5 years. 3 years and 6 months, I believe. And that looks like that's going to be the first 3.5 years to me. I'm saying it looks like it. This also makes it look like maybe part of what helps him come into power trustworthy is that he heals the deadly wound. So this could be like an early rebellion against the system that's quelled right then, earlier, not at a halfway point. "And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwell in heaven. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations." So this lets you know it's worldwide, and that the people of God will come under persecution and look like they're being defeated. To not be discouraged like it's a lack of faith. "And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear." We need to be living in these verses more than ever. We need to be living here, because everyone's going to worship this system. It's going to be the Savior and the new God. "He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. So I'm taking that to mean that the injustices that we will see will require great patience and faith. And keeping these things in mind a lot, and that there's going to be justice, even probably during this time. That what people are doing to other people is exactly what's going to come back on them. And it's letting you know that a lot of people are going to be captured and killed. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And so these are together. This is what I'm saying. This looks like somehow or other a 2-part system. But they're probably back to back because it says the first one is associated with 3.5 years. So it looks like that first one comes in with a deadly wound healed. That could also be a marker. Everyone's looking for a marker of the temple being built in Jerusalem, of that would be a 3rd temple, and of a peace treaty being signed, a covenant with many. This is a possible other marker of a beginning, is a deadly wound of the head being healed. And it says, and he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. It's going to be more than even the tech that we have now that we're being shown can like reroute asteroids or whatnot. And people are speculating about Rod of God and UFO tech and all of this. So probably a lot of that angel hidden tech will suddenly be shown to us that's been here all along. That's why we don't need to be amazed by it. It's good to know ahead of time so we're not amazed by it and we know exactly what it is. And deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by a sword and did live. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast. I don't know if that's the abomination of desolation, because a changeover point may be that mid-trib or abomination of desolation point. I don't know if that's part of it or even something different. It says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. This is where it's getting a lot more murderous, in my opinion. Like at first, it says the first one was given unto him to make war with the saints and overcome them, over everyone, basically. The second one's different. They're killing people who will not directly worship. So, yes, it could be terrible tribulation the entire time. It already is in parts of the world, you know. But the second one to me is like a phase 2, is what I'm seeing here. As many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And this is where the mark comes. So I'm curious if the literal mark will not even appear until phase 2, which could possibly be after what it says in verse 5, 40 and 2 months. So if you have the first 3.5 years, it may be 3.5 years into the tribulation before we see the mark, the full mark of the beast. That's a question I have. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And I wonder if this could be tied in with the death of the 2 witnesses. Possibly. That's a different study, though. It says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So I take a warning there that even if someone's not putting something into your body, if they're saying, well, you can get you can just get the card for now. You just have to sign away your allegiance to Christ and to Muhammad and Buddha and everyone else, and worship the new God, and you can take the card and you don't have to put it in your skin at first. You just need the card so you can use your bank and you can pay your taxes and you can do this. But the card has the name or the number on it, and you swore your allegiance away. I'm trying to prepare not to even do that, because it's going to be some very hard choices that we're going to have to make. But always rest assured that you have millions of people making the right choice with you. And that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. So, that's pretty terrible. What I saw in the book of Daniel was interesting. It looks like, me and my sister have joked before that Daniel leaves you, and Daniel could probably testify to this, at the biggest cliffhanger that you ever saw. This is the biggest cliffhanger. And, because at the very end it's talking about there shall be 1,290 days, and blessed is he that waiteth to the 1,305 days. But go thou thy way to the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of the day. So that's all that matters anyway, is you're going to be with the Lord. That's all that matters. But that's the biggest cliffhanger, because like, what does that's a code, and what does it mean? And we laughed about that. But an interesting thing, it is sealed up. It says in verse 9, go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. And that may be to the very end. It may not be understood to the very end by anyone. I'm in chapter 12 of Daniel in the Old Testament. But what I was reading was, I'm going to start in verse 5. Apparently there's like these two angels he sees at the river, or two men. The second one, it sounds like he's saying there's going to be a 3.5 time period. At the end, it's going to be the last 3.5 time period that the holy people, it says, they will have their power scattered. And that looks to me like it's also confirming that the last 3.5 years are going to be the hardest. And so I'll just read through it. Chapter 12, verse 5 of Daniel, it says, Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, and one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on that side of the bank of the river. First of all, God bless these people that kept seeing the dudes in the river, because I would have done run away, I think. But it said, and one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river. So maybe there was like 3 people there. How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? So they're kind of asking what the disciples were asking Jesus of, what will be the signs of the end? It's kind of the same question maybe. How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I'm thinking by these wonders, Daniel had just been told some things in chapter 12 about Michael standing up at the end. There'll be a great time of trouble. And people are going to die, and some will be in life, and some will be in everlasting shame. And the wise people are going to be turned into great righteousness forever and ever, and seal the book even to the time of the end. So we're talking about the times of the end, and then it shows a different paragraph in this version of the Bible where he's switching over to these people he see in the river talking to each other, and they're asking each other, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? So it looks like it's talking about the last times. And it said, and I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half time. And that seems like it's the 3.5 years that's mentioned in other parts of the Bible, where it talks about a time, and a half time. Could be 2 years, 1 year, and a half of a year. That's what's usually speculated, because it's usually associated with the same 1290 days, 42 months, 3.5 years. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished. So to me, that's giving possible information that for 3.5 years the power of the holy people will be scattered, and when this is done, all these things shall be finished. In other words, it wouldn't be the first 3.5 years, it would be the last 3.5 years that the holy people, in other words, that's an intense time possibly for the holy people. Verse 8 says, "And I heard and I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things?" He's kind of asking the same thing, right? What shall be the end? And Daniel just seems so sweet to me, you know. And he said, "Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end." It's talking about the end times. I love this verse. It explains so much. Verse 10. "Many shall be purified and made white and tried." And that's one of the first things, guys, that I felt when I had the satanic attack on my body so hard, is the Lord just kept promising me about sitting on a white horse with white robes. And there were a lot of things that I was tempted to worry about, wonder about, and be upset about, that I just had kind of this idea that you see your white horse beside a sea, and this is not scriptural, but it's beside this sea, and you take all the other things that don't matter, and you take them all off, and you put them into that water, and you forget them. And then Jesus puts on the white robes, and you're going to go forward like that. There's just a lot of things that we cannot care about anymore that absolutely do not matter. And I'm not there yet. I'm just saying, there's no telling what we're going to go through. "Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly." We're going to keep seeing the people gloating in our face while they're killing us, while they gnash on us with their teeth. "And none of the wicked shall understand." And like you guys have probably seen all around you, they don't understand at all. Amazing. "But the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand." Praise God. "And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away." To me, this goes back to that was beautiful, wonderful, and very needed. Very, very needed. From verse 11 forward, it looks like it's still, this is probably that same being, it seems like, that just said there's going to be, it looks like he's saying a 3.5 time period, the power of the holy people will be scattered, then it will end. Probably the last half of the tribulation. And so he continues talking about it, and he says, "From the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that maketh desolate set up," which if you study that in the Gospels, that looks like the mid-trib. That looks like the division of the 7 years. So it looks like he's talking about the last half of the tribulation again, possibly. Because one of the things we wondered, me and my sister, when we looked at this before, it's talking about daily sacrifice taken away and abomination of desolation set up. And a lot of people have speculated that's the same time. I don't know if it's from this verse or other verses too. But we wondered, is there a time frame difference there? Or is it the same time? Do those happen a year apart even? But the way it's looking now makes it seem like it's talking about that same time, abomination of desolation. It's just describing everything that will happen at that time. Daily sacrifice taken away and abomination of desolation set up. It says, "From that time there shall be 1,290 days." I believe it says in Revelation 1260 days. When you divide that one up by your 30 days, you get 42 months, which is mentioned again in chapter 13. And that's very precisely, you divide that one by 12 and you're getting 3.5 years. So there's some time frame that's being given here there's just so much more information in Daniel. I know that I will never understand Daniel completely. I just know that. That's why I just haven't really read it. I've read through it a lot, but I've never even tried to understand it as much as I have in Revelation. But here is another hint at a longer time frame, by the way, from the mid-trib past your 3.5 years. That's just a month further though. This is where me and my sister were like, what is it saying? And we don't know completely. But the biggest thing that I did take away from when I was reading this was that it looks like the last half, it's talking about that last half of the tribulation, the last half of the 70th week of Daniel, in which it's going to be the worst for the holy people. They're going to be scattered. And I haven't studied what a lot of people are saying about these time frames. There's the 1260 in Revelation. There is the times, and halftime. This 1290 is only 30 extra days. And this is possibly giving very specific information for people that are having to live through it at the time. Kind of like we're told repeatedly in the Bible, let him who sees it when they see it understand it. And that's the abomination of desolation. It's talking about very related things here. So I'm thinking this may be very helpful for people that are having to live through it. Because it says, blessed is he that waiteth and cometh to the 1,305 and 30 days, which is 45 more days, I believe. And so, in other words, just because if you happen to live in that time and you had like 3.5 years and nothing happened that you thought should happen, there's more time. And it's a hint, like I said once more, of extra time being on earth, of things occurring after the 70th week. There's more things happening. This could be a big hint to us that the wrath gets poured out next. Maybe that's the blessed is he that waiteth. Some of these things I really do believe you might have to be there and have a revelation and kind of see what's going on in the world that matches, and you're like, that makes sense now. But my biggest takeaway, which in verse 13 it says, but go thou thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in the lot at the end of the days. My biggest takeaway would be that the last half of the tribulation is different. It's different. And there's going to be the most persecution in that last half. We may not even see the full mark of the beast system until the last half, even though the persecution would obviously begin immediately, more than we've ever seen. We may have a preparatory period, if you will, over a lot of parts of the world at the beginning of the tribulation. For people to wake up and realize we all missed the rapture, and it's okay. I don't need to joke about serious things. But I think that is my update for now, and hopefully it was helpful. I may check out Deep Impact and give you guys my thoughts on it, but it would probably be very relevant because it's about the stars and the heavens and what is going on there, and that I believe is giving us a lot of information about where we are. And they're going to have excellent speakers, and that's once more with Paul Begley Prophecy. If you guys want to go to the Paul Begley YouTube channel or paulbegleyprophecy.com, I believe it is, and check that out and attend that webinar yourself. It's not that much. I think it's like $45 or something, and it's for December the 2nd, so it's coming up very soon. So other than that, I hope everyone is having a very peaceful and blessed holidays despite the circumstances. I hope you're able to somewhat prepare in any way that God is leading you for what's obviously coming. And, don't be fearful. Just know that you're walking with the Lord through it and drawing closer to Him. And I would say, I would just encourage everyone, stay in the Word. Stay close to the Lord. Stay in the Bible. Be learning it. Be studying it. Be in a lot of prayer and repentance. Be in a lot of repentance as far as seeking change to please God. Less of ourself and more of Him. And be looking to the heavenly things and let God just loosen your grip off of the world, the worldly things, being in the world systems, and just preparing your heart and mind more and more that we are in a completely different kingdom. Because Jesus prayed that for us in the garden, that we would be just in a whole different place with Him and the Father, like in a whole, metaphysically, a whole different realm, a whole different, I mean, we still suffer things on this earth, but we are with the Lord. And we are in a different kingdom and a different world systems completely. And how we should act and think and expect because of that. And we will be persecuted here, and we will be, it's not a lack of faith. The faithful will be counted worthy for persecution, and we will suffer for the kingdom of heaven. We will suffer for it. We will enter the kingdom of heaven through much tribulation. Not necessarily the 7-year, the great tribulation, but through much tribulation we enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, guys, that's all I got for now. Hopefully it blessed you somehow. If you have any feedback on anything that I talked about, feel free to leave in comments, and God bless you.
Thank you for the cross, Lord. Thank you for the price you paid, bearing all my sin and shame.